We hit our 5,000 ounce goal, which is really sweet. And now we're going for 6,000 ounces.
They say the Klondike makes you pay for every ounce of gold you take. Usually that payment is in sweat, broken steel, and sleepless nights. But this season, the cost is dignity. Tony Beets, the toughest miner in the North, finds his operation paralyzed. Not by the government, not by a lack of funds, but by a beaver. It sounds like a joke, but the damage is dead serious.
Be damned if we're gonna get that beaver to me around.
Millions of dollars in gold are sitting underwater. And get this, while Tony is dealing with his aquatic nemesis, Parker Schnabel is executing a ruthless strategy to strip the competition bare. When water management goes south, Tony Beets is known for being an unstoppable force in the Yukon. He moves ancient dredges, bullies permafrost, and generally forces the landscape to give up its treasure. But this week, the Indian River claim faced an opponent that didn't care about Tony's reputation. It started with the water management system. In a large-scale placer mine, you don't just dig, you have to manage millions of gallons of water. The dirty water from the sluice box has to go into settling ponds to let the sediment drop out before the water can be recycled or released. It's a delicate balance of flow and gravity. At the Indian River, the setup relies on a sequence of ponds connected by culverts, large metal pipes buried under the roads. The system handles a discharge of 3,300 gallons a minute. That is a massive volume of water. To put that in perspective, that's enough to fill a standard backyard swimming pool in under 4 minutes. When that water has nowhere to go, it becomes a destructive force. And that's exactly what happened.
Well, lucky, because sometimes they got logs in there, they got all kinds of crap in there.
A beaver, acting on pure instinct, decided that the culvert connecting the two main settling ponds was the perfect spot for a new home. This wasn't just a few sticks. Beavers are nature's engineers for a reason. They weave branches, mud, and rocks into a watertight seal that can withstand immense pressure. This beaver plugged the culvert so tight that the flow completely stopped. The result was immediate and catastrophic. The first settling pond, unable to drain into the second, filled up rapidly. It breached its banks, sending a torrent of water cascading down into the early bird cut. This was the only active gold-producing cut Tony had running. Suddenly, the pit wasn't a mine, it was a lake. Excavators can work in wet conditions, but they can't mine underwater. The pay dirt, the gravel containing the gold, was being submerged. If the water rose too high, it could damage the equipment, destabilize the high walls of the pit, and make it impossible to haul dirt to the wash plant. The plant had to be shut down. Silence fell over the mine. Every minute that wash plant sits idle, money is evaporating. We are talking about thousands of dollars an hour in lost potential. Tony didn't call animal control. He didn't wait for a trapper. He did what Tony always does. He used heavy iron. He climbed into an excavator to physically rip the blockage out. This is dangerous work.
Then what I'll do is I'll bang the water out, and then we can see what the problem is.
You're digging blindly into murky water, trying to hook a tangled mess of logs inside a metal pipe without crushing the pipe itself. If he crushed the culvert, the road would collapse, and the fix would take days, not hours. He managed to hook the debris. With a roar of the diesel engine, he pulled a massive plug of vegetation out of the pipe. The suction broke. A whirlpool formed as millions of gallons of water finally rushed through to the second pond. The flood in the cut began to recede. They were down for half a day, a painful loss in a short mining season, but they were back in the fight. But here's the thing. While Tony was fighting nature, the real threat to the Beets empire was happening right under his nose, and it involved human resources, not rodents. The silence of the mine was broken, but the noise coming from the rival camp was about to get a whole lot louder. The exodus continues. While Tony was battling the beaver, his son Kevin Beets was fighting a different kind of battle, a battle for morale. Kevin's operation has been plagued by mechanical issues and difficult ground. He's mining a section where the permafrost is thawing into a sloppy, mud-soaked mess. In the mining world, they call this soup, and trying to run soup through a wash plant is a mechanic's nightmare. The specific issue was the feeder belt. The pay dirt was so wet and slick that it was acting like a lubricant. The rubber conveyor belt couldn't get a grip on the material. Instead of carrying the dirt up to the trommel, the belt was just sliding underneath it. The hopper was full, but nothing was feeding. For the operator, Caden Foote, this was torture. He's a 23-year-old mechanic and operator, a local kid with serious talent. But talent doesn't matter when the equipment won't run. Caden was tasked with a miserable job, standing by the feeder and manually clearing the mud or watching the machine fail over and over again. He's a skilled mechanic, hired to fix engines and weld steel, not to babysit a slipping belt. The frustration was visible. He felt disrespected, underutilized, and ignored. Kevin's solution was to blast the mud with high-pressure water, 4,000 psi of hot water to clean the belt. It worked temporarily, but it was a band-aid on a bullet hole. The morale in Kevin's camp was plummeting. Enter Parker Schnabel. Parker has a reputation in the Klondike. He's young, he's rich, and he runs the tightest ship in the north, but he's also known as a predator when it comes to staffing. He knows that the bottleneck in mining isn't just gold, it's good people. Earlier in the season, Parker had already poached Brennan Rott, Kevin's former foreman. Now, he had his sights set on Caden. The conversation was tense. Caden went to Kevin to drop the bomb. He had a job offer from Parker that he couldn't turn down. This is the brutal reality of the Yukon labor market. It's a small world. Everyone knows everyone. And when the top dog offers you a seat on the winning boat, you take it. Kevin was clearly stung. Losing one key guy is bad luck. Losing two to the same rival feels like a conspiracy. He even asked if Brennan had orchestrated it. Caden denied it, but the writing was on the wall. Parker isn't just mining the ground. He's mining the competition's workforce. He wondered aloud if he was the worst offender or just the most successful at poaching. The answer is probably both. By taking Caden, Parker didn't just gain a mechanic. He weakened a rival. It's a zero-sum game. Every hour Caden spends fixing Parker's gear is an hour he isn't fixing Kevin's. This aggressive expansion strategy highlights the difference between the two camps. One is struggling to keep the belts turning. The other is assembling a dream team to chase a record-breaking target. With a new ace mechanic on his payroll, Parker was ready to make a move that would physically shift the landscape of the Klondike. The wash plant logistics. Parker Schnabel isn't chasing small pockets of gold this year. He is hunting a monster total, 5,000 ounces. To get there, he needs volume, massive volume. And for that, he needs his biggest weapon, Slucifer. This wash plant is a beast. It's a custom-built 45-ton machine capable of processing hundreds of yards of dirt an hour. But a wash plant is useless if it's sitting in the yard. The target is a new cut called the Golden Mile on Dominion Creek. Drill results suggested this ground could hold up to $12 million in gold. It's a staggering number, but gold in the ground doesn't buy diesel. You have to get it out. The logistics of opening this cut were a headache. Tyson Lee, Parker's plant boss, had to coordinate a massive move. They had to drag Slucifer 3 miles across the claim. This isn't like towing a trailer. You are moving a factory. They had to prep the pad, build the access roads, and install culverts for water management, hopefully beaver-proof ones. The move itself is a high-stakes ballet of heavy equipment. They used a massive loader to pull the plant, inching it up the hill. If a chain snaps or the plant slides off the road, the season could be over before it starts. Caden Foote, the new hire, was immediately thrown into the mix. He was tasked with digging up the access road to install the drainage systems. It was a test. Parker was watching. Tyson was watching. The kid delivered. The road was prepped, the culverts were laid, and the path was clear for Slucifer. Once the plant was positioned on the pad, the energy shifted. There is a specific sound a wash plant makes when it fires up, a rhythmic thrumming of the shaker deck and the roar of water hitting the spray bars. For Tyson Lee, Slucifer is his baby girl. He talks to the machine. It sounds crazy, but when your livelihood depends on a hunk of steel, you form a bond. They fired it up. The first rocks hit the hopper. The conveyor screamed to life. For the first time in 2 years, Slucifer was washing rocks on Dominion Creek. This was the moment of truth. The Golden Mile was no longer a hypothetical treasure map. It was being processed. Parker needs this cut to pay out huge. He has millions invested in upfront stripping costs, fuel, and labor. If the drill results were wrong, this move would be a financial disaster. But if they were right, Parker was about to leave everyone else in the dust. The plant was running, the dirt was flying, but the only thing that matters in this game is what gets caught in the mats at the end of the week. A race against time. While Parker plays with millions and Tony fights floods, Rick Ness is fighting for his life in the industry. Rick is a fan favorite because he's the underdog. He took a year off, he battled personal demons, and now he's trying to claw his way back to the top. But the road to redemption is expensive. Rick hit a wall with permits on his own claim. Bureaucracy, the silent killer of mining dreams, stopped him cold. He had a stockpile of pay dirt he couldn't touch. With no income and bills piling up, Rick had to make a desperate pivot. He went back to his old landlord, Troy Taylor. The deal they cut was brutal. Troy holds the cards. He knows Rick is desperate. They agreed on a 15% royalty. That means for every $1,000 of gold Rick finds, Troy takes $150 right off the top. That's before fuel, before wages, before repairs. But it gets worse. There's a 100-ounce minimum. Rick has to find at least 100 ounces, roughly $200,000 worth of gold, just to meet the contract terms. If he finds less, he's in breach. He also owes a backlog of $350,000. The ground itself is terrifying. It's in Keno, a place known for spotty gold. This isn't a consistent blanket of gold like you might find in the Klondike. It's pockets. You can dig a 10-foot hole and find $1 million, or you can dig 10 feet to the left and find absolutely nothing. Rick calls it exciting and nauseating. That's the perfect description of placer mining on the margins. Rick's team moved quickly to the 2-acre cut Troy had started stripping. The pressure is immense. They aren't mining for profit yet. They are mining to pay off debt. Every bucket that gets dumped into the hopper is a gamble. If they hit a sterile patch, the fuel burn alone could bankrupt them. Rick doesn't have the deep pockets of Tony or Parker. He is operating on a razor's edge. One major breakdown, one missed pay streak, and the comeback story ends in a foreclosure auction. This storyline adds a layer of grit to the season. It shows the other side of the gold rush. It's not always about getting rich. Sometimes it's just about staying in the game long enough to fight another day. Rick was digging for survival, but back at Indian River and Dominion Creek, the big boys were about to weigh in their haul. The end of the week in the Klondike is Judgment Day. All the dirt, all the diesel, all the drama, it all comes down to a jar of yellow metal on a digital scale. First, the Beets camp. Despite the Beaver attack, the flooding, and the shutdown, Tony's team at the Indian River managed to clean up. The gold from the early bird cut is coarse and chunky, the kind miners love to see. As Kevin poured the gold onto the scale, the numbers climbed. 100, 150, 200. The final tally for Tony was 214.6 ounces. That is worth roughly $750,000 at current prices. It sounds like a massive win, and for most people it would be. But for Tony Beets, who is chasing a 6,000-ounce season, it's just a drop in the bucket. It brings his season total to 632 ounces. He's on the board, but the Beaver cost him. That half-day shutdown likely shaved 20 or 30 ounces off the total. That's $70,000 to $100,000 lost to a rodent. Kevin's cleanup was smaller, just 48.46 ounces, reflecting the struggles with the wet pay and the crew turnover. So, who really won this round? Was it Tony for beating the Beaver, or Parker for capitalizing on the chaos? It seems like the torch is being passed, not with a handshake, but with a stolen mechanic and a jar of gold. What do you think? Did Caden make the right choice jumping ship? Drop a comment below, hit that like button, and subscribe for more Gold Rush updates.